The Book of Judith is a fascinating piece of ancient literature that has generated considerable debate and intrigue, particularly due to its controversial status and eventual exclusion from many religious canons. The concept of forbidden knowledge, as it relates to the Book of Judith, can be understood as the idea that certain texts are restricted or excluded from official religious teachings due to their content, themes, or implications that challenge established norms or beliefs. The Book of Judith, a deuterocanonical text, is a prime example of this, as it raises complex issues about gender roles, violence in religious narratives, and divine justice. The significance of exploring the Book of Judith in the context of forbidden knowledge lies in its ability to illuminate how religious and cultural authorities navigate the boundaries of acceptable discourse. By examining the reasons behind its exclusion from certain canons, scholars and theologians can gain insights into the dynamics of power, faith, and tradition. This exploration also sheds light on how narratives that subvert or challenge dominant ideologies are managed within religious contexts. A real-world example of the significance of the Book of Judith is its impact on feminist theology. Judith's portrayal as a strong and cunning female protagonist who saves her people by beheading the enemy general Holofernes is a departure from typical patriarchal narratives. This has made the story a source of inspiration for feminist interpretations, challenging traditional gender roles within scriptural texts. Another example is the text's reception in different Christian traditions, where it remains part of the canonical Bible in Catholic and Eastern Orthodox churches, but is excluded from the Protestant Old Testament. This discrepancy highlights the varied approaches to biblical canon formation and the criteria used to determine scriptural authority. Despite its importance, the Book of Judith comes with challenges and controversies. Critics argue about its historical accuracy and whether it should be regarded as allegorical rather than historical. There are also alternative viewpoints that see its exclusion as a reflection of broader efforts to control religious narratives and maintain doctrinal purity. Connecting to the larger topic of forbidden knowledge, the Book of Judith serves as a pivotal case study. It exemplifies the ongoing tension between orthodoxy and heterodoxy, illustrating how texts that push boundaries and provoke thought are often sidelined in favor of maintaining established religious frameworks. This dynamic influences discussions on the nature of scriptural authority, the process of canonization, and the role of critical interpretation in understanding sacred texts. Through these connections, the Book of Judith invites continued exploration and dialogue on the limits and possibilities of religious knowledge. Historical background and authorship of the Book of Judith is a critical component when exploring why this biblical text was considered controversial or even banned in certain contexts. The Book of Judith is an ancient Jewish text that tells the story of a Jewish widow, Judith, who bravely infiltrates the enemy camp, seduces the general Holofernes, and beheads him to save her people. This book, found in the Septuagint, but not in the Hebrew Bible, raises questions about its historical authenticity and theological fit within the canonical scriptures. Understanding the historical backdrop and authorship of the Book of Judith is crucial to grasping its contentious nature. While traditionally attributed to an unknown author, scholars often debate its historical accuracy due to anachronisms and geographical inaccuracies within the narrative. The uncertainties regarding its authorship and historicity feed into broader concerns about its theological implications and cultural impact, sparking debates on its canonical status. This point is significant because it delves into why the text was and geographical inaccuracies within the narrative. The uncertainties regarding its authorship and historicity feed into broader concerns about its theological implications and cultural impact, sparking debates on its canonical status. This point is significant because it delves into why the text was met with skepticism and ultimately excluded from certain religious canons, highlighting tensions between religious tradition and historical authenticity. The significance of the book's historical and authorship debates can be exemplified in its exclusion from the Jewish Tanakh and the Protestant Old Testament, a decision possibly influenced by its questionable historical claims and potentially subversive themes. Moreover, the story's portrayal of Judith challenges traditional gender roles, offering a powerful female protagonist in an era largely dominated by male figures, which could have contributed to its controversial reception. Supporters of the Book of Judith often argue that it should be appreciated for its moral and spiritual lessons rather than its historical fidelity. They believe it conveys enduring messages about faith, courage, and devotion, emphasizing narrative value over literal accuracy. On the other hand, skeptics point to its lack of historical evidence and its dramatic, almost theatrical storytelling as reasons for its exclusion from certain religious texts. The historical background and authorship of the Book of Judith influence broader discussions surrounding forbidden knowledge by illuminating the criteria used to include or exclude texts from religious canons. This point interconnects with other aspects of the main topic by exploring how questions of authorship and historicity can lead to claims of forbidden knowledge, reflecting deeper anxieties about the interplay between faith, history, and literary expression. It highlights the complex dynamics that come into play when determining the religious legitimacy and pedagogical value of ancient texts. The concept of cultural and religious significance in ancient texts refers to the profound impact that ancient writings have on shaping the beliefs, traditions, and societal norms of cultures and religious communities. These texts serve as foundational documents that convey moral teachings, historical narratives, and spiritual insights which communities turn to for guidance and identity. In relation to forbidden knowledge, why the Book of Judith was banned. Understanding the cultural and religious significance of ancient texts like Judith is crucial. The Book of Judith is a narrative of a daring woman who saves her people through wit and courage. And this story resonates with themes of faith, power, and divine intervention. The significance of this point lies in how the Book of Judith reflects and challenges the cultural and religious values of its time. Despite its gripping narrative and moral lessons, it was excluded from the Jewish canon and remains controversial in Christian traditions. This exclusion highlights the complex interplay between religious authority and the representation of gender roles, heroism, and divine justice. One illustrative example is the use of ancient texts in shaping gender roles. The Book of Judith, with its strong female protagonist, challenges traditional gender norms, making it an intriguing study for feminist theology. Another example is the role of such texts in enhancing cultural identity. Communities often derive a sense of identity and continuity from ancient stories that reflect shared values and historical struggles. Opinions supporting the cultural significance of the Book of Judith point to its potential in empowering marginalized voices, showcasing a narrative where a woman's faith and intelligence triumph. However, challenges arise in its interpretation and canonical status. Critics argue that its exclusion points to patriarchal bias. Significance of the Book of Judith point to its potential in empowering marginalized voices, showcasing a narrative where a woman's faith and intelligence triumph. However, challenges arise in its interpretation and canonical status. Critics argue that its exclusion points to patriarchal bias in religious text selection, sparking debates about who gets to define religious narratives. The concept of cultural and religious significance connects the Book of Judith to broader discussions about textual authority and religious orthodoxy. Its narrative influences theological discourse and serves as a bridge between historical context and contemporary interpretations, highlighting how ancient texts continue to influence modern cultural and spiritual life. Thus, the cultural and religious significance of the Book of Judith isn't just in its content, but also in its contested place within the broader tapestry of sacred writings, underscoring the dynamic and often contentious relationship between tradition, authority, and evolving cultural values. The concept of reasons for exclusion from the canonical Bible revolves around understanding why certain texts, like the Book of Judith, were not included in the official biblical canon. The canonical Bible, as recognized by different Christian denominations, was formed through a series of historical decisions made by religious leaders who established which texts were considered divinely inspired. The exclusion of texts like Judith from the Protestant Bible, though included in the Catholic and Eastern Orthodox canons, highlights a process influenced by historical, theological, and sometimes political considerations. Understanding why the Book of Judith was excluded is significant because it sheds light on the complexities and criteria involved in the formation of religious canons. For some, it challenges the notion of biblical infallibility and completeness, prompting deeper exploration into the motives and criteria that determine the sacred texts. For instance, one reason Judith was excluded from the Protestant canon is its lack of historical accuracy. Scholars have noted anachronisms and geographical inconsistencies in the text. Another factor is its genre and content, which is more akin to a historical novel or moral tale rather than strict theological doctrine, potentially undermining its perceived divine inspiration. A real-world application of understanding this exclusion includes the academic study of biblical apocrypha, which invites theologians and historians to consider the cultural and theological insights provided by non-canonical texts. Additionally, it influences interdenominational discussions, offering a platform for dialogue about the nature of scriptural authority and tradition. Opinions supporting the exclusion often cite the need for a coherent and historically valid canon that aligns with established doctrinal beliefs. However, challenges to this viewpoint include the argument that the Book of Judith offers valuable insights into themes of faith, courage, and divine intervention, serving as an important cultural and religious artifact regardless of its canonical status. The exclusion also invites controversies